The Los Angeles Lakers get eliminated by the Minnesota Timberwolves in the playoffs, and LeBron James has a message to Anthony Edwards. But will LeBron James, is he considering retirement? He was asked about the question and gave a non-committal answer. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves and what's next for them and Anthony Edwards. And Bam Adebayo actually gets pretty critical over Pat Riley. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. Also, the Lakers were eliminated yesterday after 5 games, and the Minnesota Timberwolves just, hey, listen, they played extremely well. Anthony Edwards, a lot of people are saying, is this him really stepping into his own and becoming one of the faces of the league? He even took like a stroll around the crypto arena, which we'll talk about here a little bit in a second, right? But everybody's now asking what's next, right? Luka Dončić drew a lot of criticism after his play in yesterday's game, especially defensively, where he was just extremely bad when it comes down to it, right? But now, the question is what's happening with the Lakers? We know that the Lakers are going, and they were always going to spend a lot of effort, and a lot of their work this offseason was going to be building the roster kind of more organically around Luka Dončić and his skill set, maybe go out and get that starting caliber center and the things like that. But, with Luka suffering an injury in this game and that and stuff like that, like over the series, wasn't quite him at times, the series. It is what it is. But I think, everybody needs to keep in mind that this team was never meant to compete this year. And I know people are going to have knee-jerk reactions, say, well, you trade for Luka, you better compete that year. But, Luka does need a specific kind of team around him and players around him. We're going to talk a little bit about that, right? One of the kind of surprising things that this team needs. But there's clear frustration, right? From LeBron, from Luka, from everybody around the Lakers head coach, J.J. Redick, who made some mistakes in this series. You look back at that time where in the second half of the game, he played the same 5 players and didn't really, go into his reserves at all. Like, things like that happen. But I think when you look at the Lakers, overall, you had a first-time head coach that I still say did way better job than not in his first year with the Los Angeles Lakers. You made a trade that completely changed the direction of your franchise for the future, and having now Luka Dončić locked in there, he's talked a little bit about an extension and things that could come there. You had LeBron here. You traded AD. So all those things, it'll come down to it, right? But everybody's kind of going after some of the comments from LeBron after this game, right, where he said this. He was asked if the Lakers needed more size in the front court to help off against the Timberwolves, and he said this: no comment. My guy AD said what he needed, and then he was gone the following week. So I got no comment. I put that uniform on every night. I give it everything I had, and that's all that matters. Now, that is, of course, what a lot of people are going to take and be like, what the hell is going on with LeBron with making that comment? But here's the thing. There's about zero chance that LeBron James is going to leave the Lakers. He's entrenched in L.A. His family settled there. Bronny's on the team. Bryce is coming into the league probably within the next, year or two after next season. So, that's what it comes down to. LeBron's not going nowhere, right? When you look at it, LeBron, he played well. His 22nd season in the league, he averaged 24 points, 8.2 assists, almost 8 rebounds. In the playoffs, he averaged 25 points, 9 rebounds, 5.6 assists, 2 steals, and 1.8 blocks, almost 2 blocks per game. LeBron gave it everything that he got, but we knew that this team was missing something, and that's depth, right? Depth is something that this Lakers team is really going to have to focus on in this offseason. We know a starting caliber center is definitely needed, and Jackson Hayes was never really meant to be that. He played pretty well. The numbers looked okay for him, but he was never a guy that was supposed to be there. So big man is a key factor in this team. And I wonder if the Lakers do regret not holding on to Mark Williams after that trade and rescinding that trade. I think it all comes down to what are they able to get this summer as their starting level center. But it's clear they also need depth. They need quite a bit of depth. Now, Austin Reeves didn't play the best. He didn't have a great postseason when it came down to it after playing really well in the regular season and showing some flash. But I was one of the guys that said when Luka, Austin Reeves, and LeBron were all on the court together, they had a negative net rating for the majority of that time. Now, they played really well to end the season where I think put it at basically 0. It was like 0.02, right? But overall, like, Austin Reeves needs to be better, right? They need that better depth, and that's going to be the things here's the thing, though, right? You have Luka, you have LeBron. If he stays, he's probably going to opt out, re-sign a contract, a multi-year contract. You got Austin Reeves. That's a lot better than what a lot of teams start off with, right? There's going to be somebody who wants to come and play with that. You got your coach in J.J. Redick, who I think did a pretty damn good job. Does he have room for growth? Absolutely, right? He has room for growth, but that's the next phase for this Lakers team is they get to now focus on what's next for them, right? And part of that is Luka and an extension, right, when it comes down to it. And that's the question that everybody's asking themselves. Now, most people don't expect Luka to not to opt into the contract. The Lakers are going to do whatever they need to do, right? But he can be a free agent after the end of next season. He has a player option. So after the 25-26 season, he can absolutely opt out of the contract, right? And Luka was asked about that, and he said this: I didn't think it yet. I've been focused on basketball. Obviously, this is the time now to think about everything. I mean, that's what Luka Dončić said after the game, right? He did say, he's really glad that he's there in LA, and they're going to treat him. They're going to do everything. Like, Luka now has basically complete control over LA, right? And they're going to do everything they can in their power to keep Luka Dončić happy, as they should. You got a player like Luka, you should do that. But Luka also is going to have to work on some things. He's going to have to, step up in certain areas. But this Lakers team is really going to, like I said, I think they're really going to focus on getting that center, getting that extra depth, and we'll see what's going to happen here going forward with the Lakers. But let me know what you guys think down below, especially with LeBron also being asked about retirement and flat out saying, I don't know, right? Yet when it comes down to that, I'm not going to read too much into that when it's said and done about LeBron and possibly retiring. We'll see what happens with it. Yeah, LeBron's a guy. He's going to make it about him. He does that in every offseason. That's kind of what LeBron is. And going into offseason where he can become a free agent, he's going to make it about him. It is what it is when it comes down to it, right? So overall, we'll see what happens when it comes down to it. We'll see what the Lakers end up doing. But LeBron made a certain comment after the game where he said this, right? He asked about Anthony Davis in the season that he said, make the next step now. Come on, right? In regards to Anthony Edwards making the next step. And that's really what the Minnesota Timberwolves are hoping, right? The Timberwolves made that trade for Julius Randle, and there were so many people ready to count out the Minnesota Timberwolves when they went through some struggles this year, and understandably so, right? But throughout all of that, Anthony Edwards was a player that still maintained, like even calling himself to carpet when he called out and talked about his teammates and things like that. Like, Anthony Edwards stepped up in a lot of ways this year. And while so much was made about the three-point shooting, which is crazy, it's legit, make no mistake about it, but also the facilitating that he's done, right? Those type of things that Anthony Edwards has stepped up his game in the leadership aspect of it. Now, the fun part of it is he takes a walk around the crypto arena after sitting in the Lakers home with his boys and, he's talking shit, he's doing things like that. But, Anthony Edwards put together an amazing season. Fourth in scoring in the league at 27.6, points per game, 5.7 rebounds, 4.5 assists. We already know the three-point shooting at 39% taking 10 three-pointers per game, right? Crazy efficiency, crazy volume that he was shooting at as well, and that's carried over somewhat to the playoffs so far, right? So you got to see how that's going to go for Anthony Edwards. He's averaging 27 points through the 5 games of the postseason so far, 42% shooting from the field, 33% shooting from three-point range. So the efficiency isn't necessarily there as much as it was early on, but he's averaging 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.2 steals per game. Anthony Edwards is playing amazingly well right now. And so now, as you get ready to go into that next step in the next round of the playoffs, everybody's looking at it to see, what can Anthony Edwards do? What's next up on the docket for Anthony Edwards? What can he do next? Whether they're going to be facing off against the Rockets or the Warriors, that's going to be a fun series to watch, right? A very fun series. Golden State leads that 3-2 right now. Maybe safe monies to bet on Golden State coming out of that. We'll see if the Rockets can make history or do anything crazy there. But I think this team overall in the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're playing with the most confidence right now. And this goes to show why early season struggles does not mean that that's where you have to stay at, right? That does not mean that that's where you're going to be the entire season. And Anthony Edwards has really shown that. Now, there's been some things. It has been all sunshine and rainbows for Anthony Edwards, make no mistake about it. There's been times where he hasn't finished necessarily around the rim the way that you want him to. Like I said, the efficiency has dropped off some, things like that. But this is really a star-making run. I guess you can't say that. Anthony Edwards was already on the precipice of being a star. But when you do it in the playoffs, right, especially in a gentleman's sweep against the Los Angeles Lakers, it brings new eyes to you, rightfully so. Now, what is Ant going to do with that? LeBron said, hey, Go take it to the next step. You get it, right? Anthony Edwards after the game talking about, he said, we beat the best player in the world, the best player ever, right? And, that's how people are going to look, like, especially this generation. That's how they view, and that's what they hold LeBron to. And I'm sure this is a great moment for Anthony Edwards to be able to play against LeBron, beat the Lakers like this. Julius Randle had himself a series as well. Like, you can't look over the contributions of Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, right, and the things that they've done in this series. It hasn't been all Anthony Edwards just putting the team on his back. They played as a team, right? You look at what Rudy Gobert did, 27 points, 24 rebounds, right? You can't, you talk about how Rudy Gobert has been judged by fans as well, right? And the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves saying this: when you have this guy on your team, you understand what a professional winner is. He's just such a competitor. He doesn't listen to outside noise. We don't listen to outside noise. No one is happier for Rudy than his teammates right now, particularly Anthony, who let everybody out there on the floor know that it was Rudy's night and nobody was around to stop him. That's it, right? You look at the criticism that Rudy Gobert has gotten, some of it, of course, warranted. Make no mistake about it. But you look at the way that he played in this series as well, especially in the closeout game. It was an extremely impressive performance. Julius Randle as well had times in this game. He took Luka Dončić off the dribble in last night's game and killed him, right? So, this is a team that don't count these guys out. Do not count these guys out. We'll see how far they can go. Of course, a lot factors in with the bracket, but it's going to be fun to watch. It's really going to be fun to watch. The Timberwolves versus the Rockets or the Warriors. Like I said, more than likely the Warriors. That's going to be a fun series because Ant and these guys are going to be ready to go. But from one eliminated team in the Lakers to another one in the Miami Heat, there's been some comments coming out of this that were extremely critical, and this coming from Bam Adebayo, who said this: at the end of the day, I want to win. So I really can't get into the logistics of the tweaks and everything. That's more of a Pat Riley question. I hope you can ask him that question to him and he doesn't blow you off and ignore you. He knows my mentality. He knows we want to win. And that's one of the biggest questions here is on what are the Miami Heat going to do in the next phase of their roster, right? Is Pat Riley going to be looking to make moves, to maybe trade Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo to reset the deck? They got young players here that are promising. Is he going to go star hunting for Giannis Antetokounmpo or whoever could become available, something like that? It could really go either way with Pat Riley. Pat Riley's a guy that has never wanted to be bad. He's never wanted to bottom out, right? He's always wanted to be a guy that puts out a team that can compete. They've been in the play-in every single year for a reason, right? And so now hearing these comments from Bam as far as like, oh, well, hopefully he doesn't blow you off. Of course, that brought some red flags to people asking, what do you mean by that? Like, is that what he's doing to his players, asking him what the next phase of this team is? I mean, who are us to say? We're not in those rooms. But I think what Bam's comments really do bring together, right, and crystallize is the fact that there's frustration all up and down that organization. And Eric Spoelstra is a fine coach. He can do a lot he can do a lot more than with kind of mid parts than what a lot of coaches around the NBA can. I'm not calling Bam a mid part. I'm just saying some of the other things around that roster. And, Pat Riley's made moves for Terry Rozier. He's made moves and eventually had to trade Jimmy Butler and things like that. But, like, it's clear that something needs to happen. If this Miami Heat team wants to not be a team that's just languishing around the play-in for the next few years, which I think Eric Spoelstra is always a coach that can definitely get you to at least that point, what's the future going to hold for this team? And that's an answer to a question that I don't know. They could go a lot of different ways. I think this was a season that, they've clearly now seen that maybe Bam isn't the guy that you can build around. There had been some questions and maybe some hope for that. But they still even got some promising pieces like the Khalil Ware, Bam Adebayo front court. Looks like something that could be legitimate, right? Tyler Hero having a great season, even though he didn't get very many Most Improved Player of the Year awards. He did step up. You don't have a point guard. You got Donovan Mitchell, who was a surprise for you here to end the season, right? So you got some things that the Miami Heat could really look to do if they want to make some moves around here to try to bring in some talent to keep this thing going. But is that going to be feasible? Now, you're in the Eastern Conference, which in the East, you're always right there, right? Theoretically, or a couple of moves away from at least being a team that can avoid the play-in. But the Miami Heat has just not made that step, that next jump up in a while. And so you're looking at the young guys they have here. Jaime Jaquez, who kind of didn't have a repeat season like people kind of hoped that he would build off on over last season. Nikola Jovic has shown some things as well as a young player growing in this league, right? Of course, Tyler Hero, who still is young, but a veteran, right? Who's really took a step up this year, his 25-year-old season. But you got to figure some things out, right? And that's the question is how much do they feel they can figure out? And living in those two timelines, is that going to really work for this Miami Heat team? Because it doesn't work for a lot of them. I guess we'll see what the future does hold for that and where it goes. But ultimately, let me know what you guys think down below. What should the Miami Heat do? Should they look to try to keep rebuilding around what they have now, or should they be looking to move on? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. The last topic before we get up out of here is the Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? A lot's been made over what the future holds for Giannis. They re-signed their GM. We don't know if that's to try to build around Giannis or if Giannis is going to eventually ask to get out of here. And I think that's the only way that it happens, right? Giannis is only going to be moved if he asks for it. And I think that's what it comes down to as well, right? And so they know that they're going to have to come up with some answers. Giannis said this: I'm not going to do this. I know how this is going to whatever I say and how it's going to translate. I don't know, man. I wish I was still playing. I wish I was still competing and going back to Milwaukee. I don't know, right? Flat out. So who are some of the teams that could put a package together for Giannis if that's what the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo decide is the best path forward, right? I think the first team that a lot of people are going to bring up is the San Antonio Spurs. Not only do they have the picks because they held on to most of their favorable picks, even trading for De'Aaron Fox, they got the young talent that the Milwaukee Bucks could very well be interested in. You're pairing him with Wemby. You're going to hold on to at least some of those young players. You got De'Aaron Fox down there. They're probably the team that's equipped to offer the Milwaukee Bucks the best mix of young talent and picks so the Milwaukee Bucks can start their rebuild, right? I think that that's the case. You pair Giannis with Wemby. You got De'Aaron Fox down there. That's interesting. When you look at the young contracts that they could move, right, and be leveraged in a trade, Stephon Castle, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, those are just some of the picks, right? On top of, because they don't have their own, well, they have their own picks, but they have other teams' picks, they can even alter multiple picks without having to worry about the Stepien rule. That's where the San Antonio Spurs are right now in a package that they can put together for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Next up, I say the Houston Rockets, right? Now, I don't know if Houston actually is a team that Giannis fits perfectly on, but they need a go-to scorer, and Giannis can absolutely be that. Much like the San Antonio Spurs, they have a nice mix of young talent as well as picks throughout their own. They own most of their own first-round picks from 2027 to 2032, right? They have the Rockets pick, and they have the Phoenix Suns pick in 2025 and 27 as well. They also have the right to swap picks with the Suns in 2029, which is big considering the state of the Phoenix Suns as well, right? You look at attaching a lot of those picks, 4 or 5 of those picks with either Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Reed Shepherd, or Cam Whitmore. They can put themselves right up there as well with teams that could make a move when it comes down to it for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think that they are one of the best teams that as well can put a package together for Giannis if they choose to do so. Then, of course, the Miami Heat are going to come sniffing around. Now, the question is how could they do it, right? That's the question here, right? They lack some major trade assets in some of those other places. Wiggins is a player that they can include, right? But outside of that, what are they going to leverage with it? They don't have a lot of picks. They don't have a lot of stuff like that. So I don't know. We hear what they do, right? They do have first-round picks in 28 and 2032 that they can move off of. But is that going to be enough? Giannis would have to specifically say the Miami Heat is the only team that he wants to go to and play for Eric Spoelstra under Pat Riley, I think, to get that done. So I don't necessarily see that, right? Kind of other teams, maybe the Clippers could put something together if they choose to do so. That's kind of more of a long shot, right? I do think that they would have some interest, but could they pull it off? I know people are going to say, well, Hayes, the Lakers got Luka Dončić. Yeah, that was a one-off with a team that just doesn't make any sense, right? But I also think look out for the Thunder, maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves, maybe, right? But again, those are kind of long shots as well. If Giannis ends up being moved, it really depends on how open is Giannis to go to some of these places, and does he have a one destination that he wants to go to above all, because he can really try to push for that if that ends up being the case. I think that's what we're going to have to look out for to see if Giannis does move out of Milwaukee and if he goes to any of these other teams. But let me know what you guys think down below, right? If you look at some of the other teams that have been mentioned, like Golden State Warriors, which I doubt, especially after making the trade for Jimmy. I doubt it. The Brooklyn Nets have been mentioned as a team that could, but I don't think that really makes any sense unless they maybe win the lottery. But even then, they're so far off. Some people have mentioned the Lakers. after making the Luka trade, I know they made robbery. Could they really do that? I don't think so. So let me know what you guys think on that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. NBACentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.